I have always loved the quiet of the countryside, the soft rustling of trees, the golden light spilling over the hills each morning, the hush that settles over the world just before nightfall. It soothes a part of me I can't name. This home, nestled beyond the old woods, has been my sanctuary. Here, I write. I think. I breathe. Alone. It was peace I sought when I came to this place, and for the most part, I have found it. But lately, a strange sort of tension has begun to creep in, like a tight thread pulled beneath the surface of things. I do not know why. Nothing has changed. The wind still carries the same scent of wildflowers and dew. The birds still sing in the morning. The nearby village still bustles quietly from a distance. It sounds faint, like echoes from another world. Perhaps it is age. Perhaps solitude wears on the nerves. Or perhaps, as I increasingly suspect, something else is at work. I have taken to journaling, not out of boredom, but out of a need to organize my thoughts. There is something calming in putting words to feelings. At least, that's what I believed when I began. It's only been a few weeks, yet already my entries have become less a collection of thoughts and more a search for meaning. A record. A defense, maybe. The first thing I noticed was the fatigue. Not the tiredness that comes from a day's work, but a strange, creeping exhaustion that settled in my bones even after a full night's sleep. I would wake more drained than when I closed my eyes, as if some unseen weight had pressed down on me all night. I dismissed it, of course. Perhaps poor air circulation, perhaps an oncoming illness. But there is no illness, no fever, only this, heaviness, and a restlessness that begins just as I lie down to sleep. At night, something changes in the air. It is not a noise, not a scent, but a feeling, like the hush in a room when someone enters unannounced. I lie there, eyes closed, heart beginning to race without reason, as if my body senses what my mind refuses to grasp. Then, just before sleep takes me, there is a moment, every night now, where I feel I am not alone. That someone, or something, is very close. Too close. Hovering just beyond the veil of my awareness. There are no footprints in the morning, no unlocked doors, nothing to suggest intrusion. Yet, I cannot shake this sense. I rise earlier and earlier, looking for something, anything that might explain it. But all I find is silence, and the wind through the curtains. Today, while writing, I found myself staring at the page long after the ink dried. I had written the same sentence 3 times. It is here. It is near. It is not me. I don't remember writing that. I laughed when I read it, of course. A nervous laugh, but a laugh all the same. I told myself it was a fancy. An overactive imagination born from isolation and too many books. And yet, even now as I sit by the window, watching the last light fade behind the hills, I feel the air change. Slightly cooler. Heavier. I am not afraid. Not yet. But I feel it, even now. A breath on the back of my neck that disappears the moment I turn. Tomorrow, I will write again. Perhaps then, it will make more sense. I no longer sleep the way I once did. My nights are now long stretches of interrupted rest, filled with fits and jolts that leave me breathless, gasping in the dark. Something stirs when the moon rises. Something unseen but deeply felt. The peaceful silence of the countryside has soured into an unnatural stillness, and I can no longer convince myself that it is only my imagination. At first, it was just a feeling, an unease, a flutter in the chest as I lay down to sleep. But it has grown darker, louder. My body betrays me now, drenched in sweat each morning though the air remains cool. I wake up with my heart pounding, the sheets tangled around my legs as if I had struggled violently in the night. And the dreams. Oh, the dreams. I dream of suffocation, of something heavy sitting on my chest, pressing down with invisible weight until I claw for air. I try to scream in the dream, but my voice is swallowed before it reaches my throat. There is always a figure, never clearly seen, never fully formed, leaning close, breathing against my face with a coldness that seeps into my bones. I do not see it, but I know it watches me with eyes that don't blink. I've told myself these are simply nightmares, nothing more. But yesterday morning I awoke to find my water decanter completely empty. I remember vividly that I had filled it the night before. I am meticulous in my habits, especially now that I've begun recording every detail of my days in this journal. I know I did not drink from it, and there were no spills, no signs of accidents, only the emptiness. I stood staring at the decanter for a long time. My reflection in the glass looked pale, drawn. More than fatigue, something else. I tried to laugh it off, to scold myself for being forgetful. I even said aloud, "You're imagining things, old fool." But my voice did not carry the conviction I hoped it would. It sounded thin, hollow. That night, I began locking my bedroom door. Not because I fear intruders. No one comes here, and no one needs to. But some instinct, primal and stubborn, told me I needed to be protected from something. Or perhaps something needed to be protected from me. Still, the dreams came. Still, the sweat soaked the sheets. And then there was, last night. I had just drifted into that fragile edge of sleep, that place between waking and dreaming, when I felt it. Not heard, felt. A weight in the room, a presence. My eyes flew open, and though the room was still, and the candle had long since burned out, I knew. Something was there with me. The darkness seemed thicker, like it had gathered around a shape I could not see. My skin prickled with the sensation of being observed, intensely, intimately. Not with curiosity, but with possession, like a hunter regarding its catch. I couldn't move. Not out of fear, though fear was there in abundance, but because my limbs had grown impossibly heavy, as though they belonged to someone else. Only my eyes darted around, desperate for something familiar, something real, and then it was gone. Not with a sound, not with a gust, just gone. I lay awake until dawn, trembling like a child. This morning I checked the decanter again. Empty, again. I feel watched, even now as I write this, especially at night. The hairs on the back of my neck rise when I turn away from the doorway. The corners of the room no longer feel empty. I cannot say for certain what stalks me. Only that something does. Something invisible. Something patient. And I believe it waits until I sleep. I am no longer content to wonder. I must know. I must prove it. These last nights have stripped me of doubt, but not of sanity. Not yet. I still possess my mind, however frayed it may feel at times. What I need is evidence. Something beyond sensations, beyond dreams and intuitions. I need a fact, a mark, a thing touched that I did not touch, something that cannot be denied, something that proves I am not alone in this house. So I have devised a test. Last night, I placed a fresh decanter of water on my bedside table and tied a thin white thread over the stopper in a knot only I know how to make. I laid beside it a small loaf of bread, untouched, and dusted the surface of the table with fine white flour. Then I went to bed with my eyes wide open and my heart racing. I did not expect sleep. I did not want sleep. But sleep came anyway, suddenly, like a shutter closing over my mind. And when I woke at dawn, my hands trembling as I threw off the blanket, I found the thread had been untied. The stopper sat askew. Half the water was gone. The flour bore no prints, nothing, not even a smudge. The bread, too, had been bitten, not torn, not crumbled, bitten, a clean crescent carved out of its side. The door remained locked from the inside. The windows were closed, every opening sealed as I had left it. I sat on the edge of my bed for what felt like hours, staring at the table, at the thread, the water, the mark in the bread. Something is here, and it is clever. I no longer laugh at myself. There is no mockery in my thoughts, only a rising tide of awe and dread. Something unseen moved through my room last night, unbound the knot, drank, ate, and left without a trace. I cannot call it a ghost, for ghosts do not feed. I cannot call it a man, for men cannot vanish without sound or step. So I gave it a name. A name to contain it, a name to face it. I call it the Horla. I don't know where the name came from. It slipped into my mind like a whisper, as if it had offered the name to me itself. The Horla. It feels ancient, like something that existed long before I did, long before this house, long before breath. I spoke to it today. I don't know what compelled me, only that the silence in the room felt too thick, too heavy, to leave unbroken. I said, "Are you here?" And of course, there was no reply. But the chill that slid down my back felt like fingers. I whispered, "What do you want?" Still silence. But I swear, the light in the room dimmed just slightly, as though the very air had thickened, folded in on itself. It is not just in my dreams now. It moves through my waking world, careful, cunning. It learns. And tonight, I will not sleep. Tonight, I will watch. But if I fail, if I again slip into that unnatural slumber, then I will know. It is not just in the room with me, it is inside my mind. I am beginning to unravel, not wildly, not all at once, but thread by thread, gently pulled loose by invisible hands. The house no longer feels like mine. It feels borrowed now, like I am a guest in my own home. And something else, unseen and soundless, has claimed ownership. It does not speak. It does not show itself. But its presence is as real as the walls that contain me. I have stopped inviting people to visit. I rarely write to friends. I no longer go into town. Why should I? No one would believe me, and their voices only seem to blur the reality I am clinging to. I must be here. I must observe. I must understand it. The Horla. I have come to know its habits. It comes always at night. That is its domain. By day, the house lies dormant, still, unthreatening. But by night, it begins subtly with the curtains. I leave them drawn, but when I wake, they are shifted, just slightly, as if someone, something, had stood at the window watching the moonlight pour in. Sometimes I hear the floorboards creak, though I lie motionless in bed. There is no wind, no draft, no rats or pests. Only the sound of pressure, weight, moving slowly across the room. At first I thought perhaps I was sleepwalking, unknowingly disturbing the room in some half-conscious state. But I have tested this theory. I've placed objects in delicate balance, a stack of coins, a book barely perched on a table's edge. In the morning, the coins are scattered, the book on the floor, and I am still in bed, my body as heavy as stone. I have tried to stay awake, desperately. I sit up with candles, cold cloths, and bitter coffee. I pace. I slap my own face. I repeat numbers and words aloud to keep myself grounded. But always, without fail, a kind of drowsy paralysis takes me. Not ordinary sleep. No, something deeper, stranger. I do not drift off. I fall suddenly into blackness, and when I wake, the night is over, and the room shifted. The Horla doesn't want me to be awake. It does not want to be seen. I am no longer sure if it feeds on my sleep, or if it gives me sleep as a means to feed. All I know is that I rise more depleted with each passing night. My reflection in the mirror is no longer my own. My skin is grayer, my eyes sunk deeper. There is a tremble in my fingers now when I hold a pen. And worst of all, oh, the worst. I think it knows I'm trying to fight it. 2 nights ago, I whispered, "I will not sleep tonight." Just those words, a small act of defiance. That night, I didn't just fall asleep. I collapsed, as if drugged. And when I awoke, my throat was dry as sand, and the candle at my bedside, new, untouched, was reduced to a pool of wax, burned all the way down. But I had not lit it. It lit it. I write this now with the windows shuttered and the door barred. But I know those things mean nothing to the Horla. They are barriers only to me. It moves as it pleases. It plays with me now. It moves a book from shelf to desk, a chair an inch to the left, my pen found in the hallway. Mockery. It is aware. It watches. It waits. I no longer fear death. I fear the slow hollowing, the quiet consumption. I fear being awake in a body that no longer belongs to me. And I fear that this is no longer just my home. This is ours. I can barely hold the pen. My hand trembles, as if something within me resists the act of writing, as if it fears what I might uncover if I force these thoughts into words. But I must continue. I must record, even if my thoughts have grown fractured, and my days blur into each other like a smear of gray watercolors. This journal is my anchor, the only piece of myself I still trust. I no longer write every day. Time has become fluid here. Some mornings I wake and believe it is the same day as the one before. Sometimes I forget my own name for a moment, or what season it is. I stand in the garden with weeds in my hand, unsure of how long I've been gripping them, unsure of what I meant to do. The Horla is inside me. I feel it now. Not just in the room, not just in the walls or the silence, but inside my blood, in my bones, in my breath. It is not just a guest, it is lodged. A second soul clinging to mine, feeding, whispering, laughing in the gaps between my thoughts. I hear voices now. Not aloud, not with my ears, but within. They are not my own. They have no language, but I understand them just the same. A rasping hum that pulses behind my eyes. I wake with a burning in my veins, a tightness in my chest, and a taste of ash on my tongue. I no longer eat. I no longer hunger. It feeds, and I fade. In desperation, I left. I boarded a carriage and escaped to Mont Saint-Michel. I told myself that distance might sever the cord, that sunlight on the ocean and the clamor of people might scatter it like smoke. But even there, among the tides and the abbey's old stones, I felt it. That invisible weight. That cold thread pulled taut between us. It does not need walls to dwell in. It needs me. There, in the shadow of the sea, I remembered something. Weeks ago, a ship passed along the coast near my home. A foreign vessel. Brazilian, I think. It flew no flag I recognized, and the men on board did not wave back. But I waved to them. I remember now. I waved first. Did it come from them? Did it ride the waves like a parasite? Did I invite it in with a gesture so small, so meaningless? Did I call it? These thoughts might be madness, I know. I tell myself that sometimes, just to pretend there is still a line between what is real and what is not. But every time I think of that ship, of its silent movement across the horizon, my skin crawls. My chest tightens, and I hear that hum again. Stronger, louder. The house is no longer my prison. My body is. Tonight I awoke standing in the hallway, barefoot, holding the fireplace poker. I do not remember leaving bed. I do not remember waking. But my hand gripped the iron as if it belonged to someone else, and in my mind was a single thought, not my own. Kill the body. Save the soul. I dropped the poker and collapsed. I wept. Not for the thought, but for the certainty that it had not been mine. I do not know how much longer I can resist. My writing becomes more erratic by the day. There are pages torn from this journal I do not recall ripping. Ink-stained lines that say only we or I am us. I cannot leave it behind, and it will not leave me. This is no longer a haunting. This is an invasion. I have begun to whisper to myself. Not out of madness, though I know those who read this may believe otherwise, but as a form of resistance. If I speak my thoughts aloud, perhaps they remain mine. Perhaps they cannot be stolen. Perhaps they cannot be rewritten. The Horla is deeper inside me now. It no longer visits, it inhabits. There are hours I cannot recall. Whole mornings lost. I find my boots muddied, though I never remember walking. Books pulled from shelves I do not remember touching. A candle burned down to its base, though I never struck a match. Last week, or was it yesterday, I found a page torn from this very journal. Upon it, in my own handwriting, were the words, "You will not win. We are already won." I did not write it. I swear I did not write it. I have turned now to study, to fight. I scour books, ancient ones, dust-covered, brittle with time. Hypnosis, obsession, possession. There are stories, scattered and half-forgotten, of unseen entities that cling to the soul like parasites. Vampires not of blood, but of will. Creatures born of air, of thought, of old fears given form. Some call them spirits, others call them demons. I call mine the Horla. I began rituals. Simple ones at first, candles lit in circles, salt spread at every window and door. Then more desperate ones, Latin prayers I do not fully understand, scrawled sigils stolen from pages best left unread. Holy water now stains my floors. I recite invocations at midnight, my voice shaking, my knees raw from kneeling. None of it works. When I finish, there's only silence. No banishment, no release, no scream of defeat. Only the thick, oppressive presence of it lingering behind me, watching. Sometimes it laughs. Not aloud, but in the way shadows dance when no wind moves them. In the way the candle gutters, though the air is still. In the way I can no longer tell whether the thought in my head is mine or its. This diary has become a battleground. I write here to remember who I am. But the words shift when I read them back. Sentences I did not craft, phrases I do not recognize, as if it edits behind my eyes. I argue with it now. Pages filled with half-conversations, me asking, it's silent. Or perhaps not silent. Perhaps the responses are buried in my own answers. Why me? I wrote yesterday. And beneath it, in different ink, was it my hand? The answer, because you looked. Because you called. It will not leave. It has no language, but it communicates. Not with sound, but with influence. Suggestion. It places ideas into me like seeds. I find myself standing at windows for hours, unmoving, watching fog creep along the fields. Once, I stood at the edge of the well for so long I forgot why I came. I only remember the thought, jump and be free. But I didn't jump. Not yet. Tonight I screamed at it. I lit every candle in the house and screamed for it to face me, to show itself. I spun in circles, daring it to strike me down, daring it to end this war in one blow. But it does not want my death. It wants my surrender. The horror is not in its power. The horror is in its patience, in its silence, in how it waits for me to break, slowly, thoroughly. It could destroy me in a moment. I know it. But it chooses not to. It wants me willing. I will not surrender. Not yet. But my defenses are crumbling. I pray there is something left of me to save. It is done. The house is gone. The flames rose higher than the trees, casting a fevered glow into the sky, as if the heavens themselves were bearing witness to my final act. I stood in the field, barefoot, the damp grass beneath my feet unable to cool the burning inside me. My heart beat like war drums. My hands shook. But my mind was clear, clearer than it had been in weeks. I had made a decision, a desperate one, yes, but necessary. The Horla would not leave. It would not be reasoned with. It would not be cast out. It had taken everything from me, my sleep, my peace, my mind. And so I would take everything from it. I would burn the walls it haunts, the roof under which it hides, the belongings it touches. I would give it no shelter. I told the servants to go. I locked the doors once they had stepped outside, confused and pleading. I told them I would explain in the morning, but there would be no morning in that house. Not for me, not for us. I doused the curtains first, then the floorboards. I lit the fire in the parlor and watched it take like hunger. Flames raced along the walls, eager, merciless. They devoured everything, the furniture, the books, the paintings, the bed where I had lain captive night after night. I spoke aloud as the blaze grew. You are in there. I know you are. This is your prison now. You will burn. You will end. I will be free. I laughed as the windows shattered from the heat. I laughed as the roof buckled, as the walls screamed in smoke and flame. I stood there until the inferno had nothing left to consume, until all that remained were blackened bones of timber and the smell of ash in my lungs. And for a moment, I felt peace. The weight lifted. The air felt cleaner, as though something had finally exhaled. My body relaxed for the first time in weeks. I sat in the grass and cried, not from fear, not from sorrow, but from the sudden stillness inside me. Then the wind changed. Only slightly. Only enough to bring a chill that did not belong to nightfall. It touched the back of my neck like fingers made of air. I did not move. I did not breathe. I felt it. Still here. Still with me. The Horla is not of wood or stone or paper. It does not fear fire. It does not reside in the house. It resides in me. It followed me through the ashes. Or perhaps it never left. I was never burning its home. I was burning mine. And now there is nothing left to destroy. No shelter to flee to. No ritual to try. No prayer to whisper. It waits beside me now. I feel it pulsing in the dark. And I know, with perfect clarity, the final truth. You cannot kill what was never alive. You cannot destroy what dwells in the soul. You cannot escape the Horla, because once you know it, once you name it, it knows you.